right, looks like we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Strategic Boardroom. It is Marketing Monday. We're going to be talking about 3 actions that you can take to generate leads this week. This is a very important time of the year where people are getting out, especially if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. We often forget we in the United States tend to be very Northern Hemisphere centric, but I got off a call not too long ago with an international client, lives in Darwin, and I have some contacts that I work with in Sydney, and it's just interesting because we forget as we're heading into summer, they're heading into winter because of the 23.5 degree tilt of the Earth. Thankfully, we have the seasons, unless you're a flat earther, and then you'll have to come up with your own reason why that happens. But anyway, we'll let them defend that to the end of time. But anyway, so as we're heading into the different season, and again, whatever season is that you're heading into, whether it is summer or winter, people tend to want to change things. They're ready to change their status. They're ready to change their state. They're ready to buy things in order to do that. So whether they are heading into summer or winter is irrelevant, because they are ready to change things. And that change of seasons always enables you as the business and business owner to position yourself smartly to do that. So that is what we're going to be talking about this week. And I want you to take advantage of the change of seasons in order for that to happen. We've had a bit of a kind of a wonky spring, which it's actually been probably a very normal spring, I would say, here in the Midwest of the United States, where normally we have a period of about 3 days of springtime where the temperature is in the mid 50s to 60s, and it's actually not awful to be outside. And that usually lasts for about 3 days, and then it just gets to ungodly hot. So I actually don't mind the heat. I prefer the heat to the cold weather. For me, it's pretty rare that it can get too hot outside. Pretty rare. I don't like the cold, but I can handle the heat much, much better. So anyway, people always say, well, you can always put more layers on. I don't know. I wear a lot of clothes all year round, and I don't know what it is. I'm pretty cold blooded. It's an interesting fun fact is I have access to my medical charts, and my average temperature for my body is 97. I'm usually either at 96.5 to 97.5, and my average is right there at 97 degrees. And I don't know if that's a thing that I should be concerned with, but that's what it's been for the last, 15 years that's in my chart. So it's kind of funny. Anyway, so let's talk about leads, and we're going to talk about 3 specific things here. If you can see on the graphic, it's about defining your target, creating a lead magnet, and then promoting the heck out of that and getting that in front of as many people as you possibly can. So we're going to talk about this in the context of the Viper framework, the systems, psychology, and supplementation framework, which oversees all of that. So I'm going to be hitting a couple of different avenues here. If any of you are interested in learning and getting into the weeds on all of this, and you'd like my specific help, we'll talk more about how to join the school community if you are interested. If you don't have the time right now, I'll just let you know right now. You can go to timewealthy.vip, and that will get you where you're trying to go. So let me see here if I can get that graphic up. Oh, my graphics isn't ready. That's okay. Well, let me put that up right now. All right, here we go. And boom, look at the magic of that. All right. Yeah, head over to www.timewealthy.vip, and that'll get you into the school community. And there's some deals there that'll get you to several different levels depending on what you're looking for. Anyway, so defining your target is obviously the first thing, and all of this is so important to understand who it is that you're targeting. And I cannot tell you how frustrating it is when I talk to a bunch of different marketing folks who call me all the time to say, "Hey, who's handling your marketing? You should be doing X, Y, and Z." And really, I should be doing that. And I'll hop on the calls. I don't do it often anymore, just because it just becomes such a monumental waste of time that I will get on a call with someone who wants to do my marketing or thinks they want to do my marketing, and I will entertain it. I'm not trying to be mean or tear anybody down. That's just not in my nature. But I will challenge people pretty direct if I feel that they're trying to sell me something that they just don't know much about. And that just bugs me. It really bothers me that people will really try to take the time to convince me that I need something that they haven't even taken the time to educate themselves about. And I'll give you a quick story. This is something I was sharing on a webinar last Thursday, and I had a young man come in who was trying to sell radio advertising to me. And he comes in, he's dressed in his khaki pants. He's got this windbreaker on with the logo of the radio group that he represents. And we chit chat for a few minutes. And before too long, he pulls out this gargantuan binder. I mean, the thing was, I don't even know how. It was like Santa's. It was like Santa's toy bag. He just basically pulled it out. It was just this huge binder. I don't even know how it fit in his backpack. This huge binder, and he starts flipping through it. And these laminated pages, which would demonstrate all the different radio stations that his radio group represented. It demonstrated all of there was like concentric circles in terms of how far out the radio broadcast signals would go with the different radio stations and so forth. There was an internet package that they could do all these different things, and how many the different demographics that it would reach, and who the average listeners were and so forth. And finally I just stopped. I was like, man, who do you think my customer is? And it was interesting that he had no clue at all who my actual customer was. Now, during this time, this is when I was working full time in my property management business. I no longer work full time in that business. I'm just a passive owner at this point. Well, I say passive owner, but I don't work that much in the property management business. It's all systematized and other people handle that. But the thing is that with that, he never really stopped to ever ask who my demographic was in order to figure out if the radio station was even going to be a good alternative for me. What would have been a good marketing approach. So this is, and I'm telling you this story because he didn't have a clue who my customer was. At the time, I mean, he guessed that college students might have been my avatar because of our proximity to Purdue University. It's right across the river here in Lafayette. And I understand why he said that, but he was completely wrong in terms of who my avatar was and who my customer was. Really, who my avatar was are people who have rental properties that want me to rent them out for them. That's who these people are. That's who I represent mostly. And we didn't have a shortage if anything, we had more demand than supply. So that's what we were needing. And he didn't understand at all who my customer was. He didn't understand at all even how we made money. And that's a big problem. So I'm getting off on a tangent there, but defining the market is so incredibly important. And make sure if you are working with a marketing person that they are not defining the target for you, that you're defining that target based on, hopefully, on what it is that they want. So in other words, if you're working with an avatar that you really like and that you enjoy working with because you understand that avatar. I like working with an avatar in Strategic Boardroom that is married, generally has kids at home, they have a business, and they work full-time in that business, or they want to work full-time in that business. I like working with small business owners, generally less than 20 employees, and I generally like working with husband and wife teams or brother sister teams, family businesses. I really enjoy working out under 20 employees. That's kind of my sweet spot because I know the struggles that they endure. That is my avatar, and I know them, and I know them really well. If you bring someone to me that's got 50 employees, does it mean I'm going to say no? No. There's got to be a good fit. If there's someone who's a solopreneur, does it mean I won't work with them? No, I've worked with lots of solopreneurs. Does it mean I won't work with someone who's got a startup? Not necessarily, but they do have to have the funds. They do have to have the ability to put the work and time into doing this. If this is going to be a side hustle for them while they're also trying to work a job, and I'm thinking, okay, well, when are you actually going to do the work here? When are we actually going to engage with one another? When are we going to get on calls? How is this going to work? And so it doesn't make any sense for me just to take their money if I can't really affect any positive change for them. So defining that market is really important for you to start really thinking about, okay, well, how is this going to make a difference if you don't define the market? How is this going to matter for you if you did define it? Can you find these people a lot easier than otherwise not? That's really important. So when you start by defining your target audience, this goes into the 3 C's of business vision, where for those of you who have ever followed me very much, you start seeing where the 3 C's are coming up all over the place in your business around core purpose, core values, and client avatar. And at any time I see a business that's really struggling, it's because one of these 3 C's, often most of these 3 C's are not well defined. Your core purpose is basically just what business you're in and what problems you solve. Your core values are what do you believe in through this business? What is this? If you went out of business, who would suffer? Who would miss this business and why? Because the business was no longer in business. And the client avatar is just basically what we're just talking about, is defining the market. Who are you targeting? Who are you going after specifically? And don't be vague. Be really specific. If I was saying I like working with married couples who are in the service industry, who are contractors in the Midwest, and they generally have a couple of kids at home, and they work that business together. But right now, I really want to talk to the bride. I really want to talk to her because she might be the one handling the office stuff. She may be the one handling all the calls while the guy is out doing the contracting sort of work. That's a pretty typical setup. Not trying to sound sexist here. That's just a very typical setup. And I want to talk with her because she's the one on the firing line while he is going out and creating all these problems, right? And I say problems, I'm just saying she's the one that's getting the brunt of it. So if I'm directing my marketing directly at her, even though I still like working with both, in fact, I insist on working with both, because there's no sense in working with her if he's not going to be involved. So I may direct my marketing towards her. So let's pretend that that's what I would be doing for this week. So you got to get really specific in terms of who that avatar is. Give that person a name. Print off a picture of them. Maybe, chances are, you already have a person who aligns with all of these 3 areas. They align with your core purpose of the business. They really, they love you. They are happy to sing your praises. They are raving fanatics about your business. They align with your core values. They're fantastic customers. You never have to worry about getting paid, and they're just a pleasure to work with. So you might think, okay, yeah, I know who that is. Great. And you make a good amount of money with them, and it's never a hassle. Excellent. How do you get 10 more of those people? How do you get 1,000 more of those people? That's who you're trying to think of. All right. So once that avatar is defined, now you want to create a lead magnet. And that lead magnet is just something that they just cannot resist. Something, and Alex Hormozy, for those, I know there's a lot of people who following him right now. He's making a big tear on social media. Had a huge book launch this year, which is going to be studied for probably the next 10 to 15 years about how brilliant this was. But he defined a lead magnet as a complete solution to a very limited problem. I thought that is absolute genius for the definition of a lead magnet. Because when you're defining this lead magnet, you want something that's going to solve a very limited and narrow problem for someone. All right. So if you're driving down the road and you see someone who's alongside the road and you say, hey, do you need any gas? And they go, oh my gosh, I could use a gallon. You're like, great, I got a gallon of gas. You can have it. Just follow me to my service station and I'll get you filled up. It'll be just enough to get you to my service station, 3 miles down the road. That would be amazing. Great. So you give them a half gallon of gas or a gallon of gas, get them down to and then you fill up there. Okay. It's a complete solution to a limited problem, right? The complete solution is it gets them to a gas station. That's what you want to think of. And I will admit that I didn't always get this right. And the complete solution to a limited problem is really difficult to do if you really don't know your avatar well. If you think everyone is your avatar, then no one is going to end up being your avatar. They're not going to respond to the lead magnets that you're putting out there. Again, think of that from a fishing perspective as the chum in the water. That's what you're putting out there. You're putting out this bait to attract these people to your net. And I hate saying it that way, but that's really the way it is that if people are not paying attention to you, it's because what you're putting in the water isn't of interest to them. So that's where you have to stop and think, okay, well, what are some things that might interest my avatar? Well, this is where you really have to know your person. Now, if you don't know them well enough, it's going to be really difficult for you to know what kind of lead magnet. So you might just have to test some things. Create a couple of different lead magnets and put it out there and see if people are interested. If you have an idea of someone you really would like to work with and you know them personally, reach out to them and say, hey, can I ask you a couple of questions? Not to sell to them, by the way. You're going to ask them some questions for research purposes and just say, hey, look, can I get your opinion on something? Ask someone for their opinion. People love giving their opinions. Like people would, if you could get paid to give your opinions, then man, I'm telling you, everybody would love that job. People love giving their opinion. In fact, that's what I often do when I'm testing new book covers, when I'm testing new course titles, when I'm testing anything. I'll ask people, what do you think of this photo versus this photo? I like to have generally 3 or 4 options. So they say, well, I really like A. Great. Do you like A or B? And they're like, they like A. Great. Do you like A or C? And they're like, I still like A. Great. How about, do you like A or D? I'm like, you really like D out of all of them, right? So now you've got, and generally you got to stop it there. Otherwise they're going to get burned out. But this is where I'm saying, like, you've got to know and reach out to these folks who really truly represent the avatar. And that could be a brother, a sister, a friend. Say, hey man, can you give me your opinion on something? And you're like, yeah. And now I want to ask these opinions. If I'm creating a lead magnet, I want to ask these opinions of people who are someone I'd actually want to work with. Not that I'm going to want to work with them directly, but someone I may actually want to work with. Because if they say, yeah, I would love that, and you're like, okay, but you're broke, right? You don't really represent my avatar, right? You want to represent someone who is at least reasonably close to the avatar as much as possible. If you're asking a 15-year-old boy their opinion on something, they might give you an answer, which is completely irrelevant if your avatar are 45-year-old women. Make sense? Why would you ask? Why would their opinion even be remotely relevant unless they had access to that avatar? It doesn't make sense. So that's why you have to be careful about asking opinions of people. Like, I mean, you'd say, well, I asked my mom. Okay, great. Is your mom an avatar that would buy from you? Does she represent an avatar that you're trying to attract? Because if not, your mom's opinion is irrelevant. And guess who else's opinion is irrelevant? Yours. Your opinion is irrelevant. It doesn't matter which one you like. I remember when I came up with my my book cover design, my book cover designer came to me and she had gave me 3 options, and man, I loved this one option. I just thought it was amazing. Everybody hated it. No, and I didn't tell anybody what my favorite was, right? I couldn't sway it either way. But I'm very happy with how it turned out, right? The book cover is beautiful, but it was not the one I chose. And you know why? Because my opinion is irrelevant. My opinion does not matter because I'm not the one buying the book. But the people who did vote was 70% to 30% over anything else that was close. And that was it. That was how I chose the book cover design. So I did the same thing with the subheading. The title was pretty well set, but the subheading, I did the same darn thing. I tested several different subheadings and tried out, and there was 3 or 4 different options, and then people told me which one they liked the best. So this is how I'm testing. So when you're trying to figure out this complete solution to this limited problem that your avatar has, reach out to people who are actually similar in that avatar, who actually are someone, not to sell to them, right? Not to say, hey, would this be something that would be interesting to you? And they'd say, oh, not really, right? Or if I was to give this away for free, would this be something that you would find value in? Or if this was something that was selling, would you find value in it? That's probably a better question, actually, because if you were selling, and it's like, yeah, I probably would find value in that. Or hey, if I was giving it away for free, because everybody's going to say that they find value in free things. But you say, hey, would you see value in this if I created X? Right? And for those people who really, when you have a winner, is when people say, well, let me know when that's done, because I want that. And that's exactly what happened with my book. Is I got that book cover design in front of, I'm not even sure, 3 dozen different people. It was a lot. And nearly, I would say half of them said, let me know when the book publishes. I want a copy. Great. I will happily let you know. And they went on my list. Okay, so creating that lead magnet, that cannot be something that is done half-baked. You have to be intentional about creating that lead magnet that is really going to be intentional and directed toward your target audience. Because if you're just going to be putting anything out there, just throwing all sorts of chum in the water, you may as well be throwing gravel in the water. And because that you don't have no idea what it is that you're going to be attracting. And you might attract sharks, you could attract jellyfish, you could attract trout, you could attract the occasional salmon, but you have no idea. All right, so you want that lead magnet to be focused on your target audience. And then the last piece of this is promote. Promote like crazy. Once you feel like you have a good lead magnet and you have something that's good, and you're not going to be creating something. This should not take weeks and weeks and weeks to create. This is something that should be good, but also something that you can do quickly. In the age of AI right now, you can create stuff so fast. It is unbelievable how quickly you can create stuff, but you got to make sure it's in front of the avatar that you want to work with. Because if you're just creating stuff just to throw stuff in the water, all it's doing is creating more noise. So this is where you have to follow your vision, follow what it is that you're trying to do, and specifically promote the ever-living heck out of it. And this is no time for shyness. It's time for boldness. You have to be bold in reaching out to folks and saying, hey, I have this thing. Do you know anybody who may be interested in this thing? You need to be reaching out to people who are in your email list. If you don't have an email list, in your Facebook Messenger. If you don't have Facebook Messenger, then who's in your phone. If you don't have people that are in your phone, I don't even know how many contacts are in my phone, but probably well in excess of 10 or 20,000. It's been a while since I've had to upload that, but it's a lot. But this is where you literally just start going through your phone and thinking about who could benefit from this, and just start sending them messages and say, hey, I have this. Would this be something that you would find valuable in? If not, do you know anybody who might? this is where you get to lean in. All right. Now, how many people should you be reaching out to? I would say you need to be reaching out to at least, I mean, probably in the thousands. 1,500 to 2,000 would probably be my minimum before I started to figure out if I needed to pivot. I would now, and I say the minimum, more is always better. But if I'm testing something, I want to look at somewhere. Again, Alex Hormozy had mentioned somewhere around the number of 2 to 3,000. I think 1,000 to 1,500 is probably closer to the minimum. I would agree somewhere between 1,500 to 3,000 would be ideal, but not everybody has that sort of time and not everybody has that sort of budget. But I mean, this could also be something that's done on simply handing out flyers with a QR code on them, stuff that you can create in Canva. But you've got to be bold with this. Reaching out, picking up the phone and calling from lists. That would be ideal, especially if you can get on lists or purchase lists. That's a whole other topic. But getting and purchasing lists for people who would be interested in something that they have purchased before, that is similar to what you have, or have demonstrated that they are interested in your product or service or something similar to what you have. Okay, so start thinking about this now. Again, I don't want to get too far. I don't want to get too in theory here. I want you to be able to take specific action, and sometimes it's even driving around and knocking on doors. And I know people are like, man, I would never do that. Okay, then be okay with being hungry. But if you're really trying to get ads, if you're really trying to get leads this week, this is where you got to be bold. You got to lean in. And the last several weeks, I was really working on a selling script, which it took a lot of time. And a selling script, if you're not familiar with what that is, if you're ever doing any sort of selling webinar, which I just did this past week, and most of my webinars were really more teaching based, which is more in my nature, but selling on a webinar is a little different. And I scripted the whole thing, and it was about 15 or 16,000 words. Man, and it was a lot of work. And by the end of it, I was just absolutely spent. I mean, I gave everything at the end. Of course, I had a guy who was asking me some questions, and I respect the questions. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't know that I got any fuel left in the tank. And it was like 9 o'clock at night, which I respected the questions. Don't get me wrong. I did appreciate that. But the thing is that when I'm taking the time to put in that much effort, so I know that the likelihood of success is there because I have prepared so well, that for me gives me a lot of comfort because I know I prepared very, very well. This is not something that you can go in half-baked. If you're taking the time to define your market well, and you created a lead magnet based on research, it is your obligation to promote it and get it in front of as many people as possible. And this is where you can also growth hack, where you can take and get, this is something that, fantastic book by Ryan Holiday, where he talked about growth hacking, where you, there's also a book called Lean Startup, where you build, measure, learn, where you're just taking the time. You're not going to build the entire product out. You're just going to get the minimum viable product out built. Then you're going to get it in front of as many people who would be interested in this as possible. You get the feedback and then you learn, right? So build, measure, learn. And that's that whole build, measure, learn framework is something you're going to apply to this, because you may not have a lead magnet that's exactly what they need, but once you start getting some feedback and you have that feedback loop, you give them the lead magnet and then you say, cool, well, how do you plan on employing this? How'd you plan to use it? What did you think of it? No, to be honest with you, I didn't open it. Okay, great. Right? So that tells me that you valued it enough to download it, but not so much to actually open it. So that might be That tells me that tells me something. That tells me that maybe I didn't really sell it well enough in my ad copy. Maybe I really didn't. Maybe they just downloaded it because they thought, okay, that's really something that I really need, but then they forgot about it because I got busy. So maybe I need to follow up with them when their email. Maybe I need to follow up with them, or maybe there needs to be an easier way. Maybe if they have to click 3 or 4 different times, maybe I have to reduce that to 2 or 3 clicks, right? These are all things you need to think about. And these are all things you need feedback loops on. These are all things that you need to back out to them and ask them. Okay. So when you're defining your market, you're creating that lead magnet, and you're promoting the ever living crap out of it. And those are 3 very actionable things that you can do this week to start picking up clients. All right. So for those of you who are interested and you'd like to learn more about this and having conversations just like this, you can head over to timewealthy.vip, timewealthy.vip. That takes you to our school community. We have a whole host of different things on there. If you are interested in different levels that you can join us at, I would love to have you on as part of the conversation. Join us with other entrepreneurs, business owners, small business owners who are just like you, who are in the thick of it, who are just really just trying to learn and do the very best they can, coming up with amazing products and services, doing really good business and doing it the right way, making a ton of money and having a bunch of time on their hands so they can live the best life that they want. All right, everybody, that is all I have. We'll see you next time in the boardroom. Take good care.